They say nature can both humble and heal us, but nothing prepared Ranger Lily Carter for the day she locked eyes with a desperate 1,000-pound bear in the heart of Yellowstone National Park. Word had spread among hikers about a colossal grizzly roaming the rugged trails, lumbering not with pride, but with an unmistakable plea in its gaze. When Lily first caught sight of the magnificent creature, her heart froze. She had never seen an animal so immense, yet so vulnerable. In that suspended moment, neither could look away, as if they recognized in each other a silent cry for help, one that would change both their lives forever. Lily Carter's boots sank into the damp earth, the soles leaving faint impressions along the narrow trail winding through Yellowstone National Park's backcountry. The morning sun had just started to rise over the ridgelines, casting slender beams of gold that shimmered through pine needles and glinted on dew-dropped ferns. Lily inhaled deeply, letting the crisp scent of pine, wildflowers, and distant hot springs fill her lungs. In that silent, early hour, the forest revealed itself in soft hushes, a woodpecker's gentle tapping, the whisper of a breeze brushing across leaves. Each day, Yellowstone's wilderness could feel like a grand cathedral, and Lily was its devoted caretaker. She had been a ranger in Yellowstone for over a decade, stationed first at the popular campgrounds near Old Faithful and, more recently, patrolling the quieter trails of the Lamar Valley. In that time, Lily had grown attuned to subtle changes in the park's rhythm. The forest might be silent on one day, alive with bird calls the next. Sometimes you'd find paw prints in places no one expected, or a shift in the direction of the wind that suddenly carried the howls of distant wolves. On this particular morning, there was an unmistakable tension in the air, like a message carried on the wind, telling her to stay alert. She wasn't alone on patrol. Her canine companion, Aspen, a Belgian Malinois trained in search and rescue, trotted by her side. Aspen was invaluable for sniffing out injured hikers or stranded animals. She had a knack for reading Lily's moods, too. If Lily ever felt uneasy, Aspen sensed it, pressing her head gently into Lily's leg as if to say, "I'm here." This morning, Aspen's ears were perked up, nose twitching at something intangible. Her tail stayed low, reflecting Lily's own sense of cautious curiosity. Word had gone around among the staff about a series of strange sightings deeper in the forest, near a place called Cascade Meadows. Several backpackers, seasoned ones, not prone to tall tales, claimed to have seen the largest grizzly imaginable. Some insisted it was at least 1,000 pounds. Rumors spread that the bear was ill or injured because it moved slowly, almost forlornly. Every so often, it would let out haunting bellows sounds that weren't the typical roars of an aggressive or territorial grizzly. Instead, they were deeper, resonating like pleas echoing through the thick stands of pine. Naturally, most in the ranger station shrugged off the idea of a pleading bear, but Lily listened carefully. In her experience, nature had a way of defying human assumptions. As she trekked further down the trail, the air turned cooler. Tall spruce and fir trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches woven overhead, filtering out the morning light until it was little more than a soft glow. The weight of the rumors tugged at Lily's mind. She remembered one backpacker's trembling voice at the visitor's center. It looked so sad, like it was begging me for something, like it wanted me to help, but I didn't know how. I was scared. I ran. Lily couldn't judge that man. 1,000-pound bear was a sight to shake even the bravest. But her curiosity was piqued. Why would a bear appear to be asking for help? Her radio crackled. "Carter, this is Ranger Samuels. Any updates on the Cascade Meadows patrol?" "Over." Lily pressed the button on her shoulder mic. "Not yet. All's clear so far. No sign of anything unusual." "Over." Aspen abruptly halted, nose high in the air. Lily stopped too, scanning the tree line. The forest still seemed empty, but Aspen's posture told her something was out there, something big. She felt her pulse quicken. They stood in silence, Lily's ears straining for the faintest crunch of branches or rustle of underbrush. But no sound came, just the hush of the wind dancing through leaves. They moved again, slower now, each step measured, ears and eyes wide open. Lily found fresh tracks near a small stream, grisly prints, huge and well-defined. Even from a distance she could see the deep impressions in the mud. She kneeled down, comparing them to the size of her own boot. The paw print dwarfed it wider and longer by a large margin. 1,000-pound bear, possibly. Her heart thudded with mingled awe and concern. Continuing on, they approached a narrow clearing known for its marshy banks and abundant berries, prime bear territory. Lily moved carefully around a bend, stepping onto the bank of the stream that fed into the meadow. As she looked up, she froze. Aspen tensed beside her, hair bristling. Across the water stood a grizzly unlike any Lily had ever seen in her years as a ranger. Enormous, its hulking frame rising over 4 feet at the shoulder, fur thick and mottled with shades of brown. But what struck Lily most was not its size, but the way it seemed to sway on its feet. It stood with a slight hunch, as though burdened by immense weight, not just of its body, but of something more profound: pain, exhaustion, or sorrow. The bear's dark eyes fixed on her, and Lily couldn't tear her gaze away. She expected the bear to react with aggression or flee into the woods. Instead, it made a sound, a low, rolling groan that coursed through the silent clearing. The noise was deep, guttural, layered with an emotion that felt hauntingly close to desperation. Lily's heart pounded. She had encountered many wild animals, but never had she heard such a soulful, almost pleading cry from a grizzly. Aspen whimpered, her instincts torn between fear and empathy. Lily raised a calming hand to her companion. Across the stream, the huge bear staggered forward a few paces, its eyes never leaving Lily. She saw a slight limp in its rear leg, and further observation revealed scars along its flank, and a deep wound that looked recent. The flesh was raw, a gash in its thick hide that must have been agonizing. Time seemed to slow. Lily felt an inexplicable pull, a command from the forest, or perhaps an unspoken directive from the bear itself. She took a cautious step forward, the water swirling around her boots. The bear let out another moan, blinking slowly, as though it might collapse at any moment. She caught her breath, heart hammering in her chest. The rational part of her mind screamed caution. A wounded bear was infinitely more dangerous. Yet that haunting look in its eyes revealed something else: trust, or, more accurately, a plea that it had no other options. Lily didn't dare move too close yet. Instead, she crouched near the water, maintaining a distance that felt safe but not dismissive. She spoke softly, though she knew the bear couldn't understand her words. "It's okay, big fella. I see you're hurt. We can figure this out." The giant grizzly sniffed the air, testing Lily's scent, and let out a shuddering breath. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. She had always known these creatures were sentient, intelligent in ways few humans truly understood, but never had she felt that connection so powerfully. This was not just an animal. It was a soul, battered and broken by something that had driven it to do the unthinkable: reach out to a human for help. Aspen stepped forward, paws splashing in the shallows, curiosity overcoming her initial fear. The bear grunted but didn't charge or flee. Slowly, with the cautious patience acquired from years of handling wildlife emergencies, Lily unstrapped her pack, rummaging for the small first aid kit she always carried. She knew the kit's contents were inadequate for a wound that large, but it was a start, maybe enough to clean the gash, or at least let the bear know she meant no harm. Yet an even more pressing question burned in her mind. What had caused this bear such grievous harm? A territorial fight with another grizzly? A run-in with wolves? Or, worse, a trap or a poacher's bullet? She swallowed hard, her stomach twisting at the thought. The presence of illegal traps in Yellowstone was not common, but it wasn't unheard of. As Lily laid out some gauze and disinfectant, the bear took another step forward, lowering its massive head. It was so close now that she could see flecks of dried blood around its muzzle, possibly from foraging or from another wound. Its breath came in labored huffs, clouding in the cool morning air. Lily's fingers trembled slightly, adrenaline mixing with empathy. For a moment, she was reminded of a night years ago when she'd found a lost hiker clinging to life after a bad fall. The same sense of urgent compassion coursed through her now, but this was a 1,000-pound grizzly, not a man. She reached out with a trembling hand, her eyes locked on the bear's face. "Easy," she whispered. "Easy, buddy." She held her breath, half expecting the bear to lash out. Instead, it let out a whimpering moan and sank down to its belly with a heavy thud. As if surrendering to her mercy, Lily exhaled a shaky breath. Carefully, she set about cleaning the wound as best as she could, pouring disinfectant on the gauze and dabbing at the crusted edges of the gash. The bear flinched, but did not pull away. Aspen stood beside her, ears perked and eyes focused, as if on guard in case the bear's mood suddenly shifted. Each time Lily touched a tender spot, the animal groaned, but it did not bare its teeth or rise to defend itself. Instead, it lifted its massive head and rested its chin on its forepaws, peering at Lily through half-lidded eyes that seemed to radiate pain and resignation in equal measure. Though she tried to be thorough, Lily knew her field kit was nowhere near sufficient for this magnitude of injury. At best, she was cleaning the area and applying basic antiseptic. The bear needed proper veterinary care, or as close as one could get for a wild creature of this size. As Lily's mind raced with possible solutions, a memory surfaced of a specialized wildlife rescue team in West Yellowstone, a group that collaborated with the National Park Service for large animal interventions. They had equipment to tranquilize a bear of this size and experienced wildlife vets who understood how to treat grizzlies. Maybe they could help. But how would they get this massive grizzly to a safe location for proper treatment? The logistics alone was staggering. And there was the ethical side. Wild animals typically only receive human intervention in Yellowstone when absolutely necessary. Nature was meant to follow its course, but this situation was different. The bear was actively seeking help, or at least it appeared so. If it was part of a protected species and in this dire condition, the park's bear management office might intervene. Lily recalled a real name from past collaborations, Dr. Joseph Harmon, a wildlife veterinarian who had worked with Yellowstone on difficult cases involving wolves and bears. If anyone could handle a 1,000-pound grizzly, it was Dr. Harmon. Lily's thoughts whirled as she finished cleaning the wound. The bear gave a long, quivering sigh. She wondered if the antiseptic was stinging it. Compassion welled up inside her, and she gently whispered, "Hang in there, friend. We're going to find a way through this." Once she had done everything her limited supplies allowed, Lily carefully backed away, giving the bear space to rise. The creature lifted its head and, after a labored breath, pushed itself up onto all fours. They stood face to face, separated by only a few yards of grass and the shallow stream. Even from that distance, Lily could feel its warmth and the raw power coiled within that massive body. Yet all she saw in its eyes was relief and exhaustion. Aspen pressed close to Lily, seeking reassurance. Lily stroked the dog's fur absent-mindedly while keeping her gaze on the bear. The big grizzly let out a final, deep rumble and slowly turned away, limping back into the cover of the forest. Pine needles rustled as the huge shape disappeared into the gloom. The silent hush returned to the clearing, broken only by the trickle of the stream and Lily's own pounding heart. She waited several minutes, half expecting the bear to return, but the forest remained still. Finally, with a steadying breath, Lily shouldered her pack and keyed her radio. "Ranger Samuels, come in. I've made contact with the injured bear. It's real, Samuels, and it needs help. I think we should alert Dr. Harmon and the Bear Management Office." Over. Samuel's voice crackled back, laced with surprise. "You actually saw it? Copy that, Carter. Head back to the station and debrief. We'll set up a plan. Over." Lily glanced into the forest where the bear had vanished, a pang of worry tugging at her. "I'm heading back now." Carter out. The drive from the trailhead back to the ranger station was a blur. Lily's thoughts raced with a potent mix of awe and apprehension. She replayed every moment of the encounter, from the bear's plea-filled groans to the sense of mutual understanding that had passed between them, wordless yet profound. Aspen, seated in the back seat of the pickup, seemed equally on edge, occasionally letting out a soft whine as if yearning to return to that clearing and the wounded giant they'd left behind. At the station, Lily was met by Ranger Samuels and a handful of others who quickly ushered her into the small conference room that doubled as a briefing area. The walls were lined with maps of Yellowstone's backcountry, detailing every known trail, wildlife corridor, and zone of restricted access. Samuels, a solid presence in his mid-40s, leaned over a coffee-stained desk as Lily described the bear's condition. She finished her account, noticing the silent stares around the room. Some rangers looked skeptical, others seemed worried. Eventually, Samuels cleared his throat. "Lily, you're certain it was that big, and it let you approach?" Lily nodded. "It was easily the biggest grizzly I've seen. And yes, it not only let me approach, it practically asked for help. If I hadn't witnessed it myself, I'd hardly believe it." Samuels exchanged glances with the others. "We'll contact Dr. Joseph Harmon. He's worked with us before on large predator rescues. If this bear really is seeking human aid, it's an extraordinary situation." One of the older rangers, Carla, frowned. "We have to be careful. A bear of that size, especially if it's wounded, could become unpredictable at any moment." "That's why we need Dr. Harmon," Samuels reiterated. "We'll form a small team, track the bear, and see if we can administer treatment in the field. If it's feasible, we might have to tranquilize it to properly clean and stitch the wound. But we can't promise any more intervention than that Park Service guidelines are clear about letting nature take its course." Lily swallowed. She understood the policies. Normally, rangers didn't play veterinarian to wildlife, but everything about this bear's behavior indicated it wanted help. "I'll head the team," she said softly, voice resolute. "I've already established some sort of rapport with it." Samuels nodded. "Agreed. And bring Aspen. A dog's senses will be invaluable." He glanced at the clock. "We'll meet here tomorrow at first light with Dr. Harmon. That gives us time to gather the necessary gear." Lily felt a surge of relief, though she knew the challenges that lay ahead would be immense. She spent the remainder of the afternoon reviewing maps of the area around Cascade Meadows, marking potential spots where a bear might rest or forage while injured. She also made a brief call to Dr. Harmon, who confirmed he would arrive at dawn with tranquilizers and a mobile veterinary kit. "If that wound is as bad as you say," he warned, "the bear could be facing a life-threatening infection. Time is critical." Night fell over the station, and Lily found herself unable to sleep, heart still pounding with adrenaline and worry. She sat on the small porch outside her cabin, the moonlight illuminating the silhouette of fir trees. Stars flickered overhead like distant beacons, cold and bright, as though they were bearing silent witness to her determination. She thought of the bear's eyes, vast, dark pools of need. 1,000-pound apex predator, carrying its own heartbreak across the forest floor, yet lowering its defenses to reach out for a human It was an image that refused to fade. Eventually, Lily drifted into a restless sleep with Aspen curled at her feet. She dreamed of the bear, hearing its haunting groans echoing through a canyon of tall pines. In the dream, she was running, chasing the sound, but the forest kept shifting, and the bear was always just out of reach. She woke before dawn, a sheen of sweat on her brow, but with steely resolve settling in her chest. The morning sky was awash in pink and lavender hues when Lily arrived at the ranger station. Dr. Harmon was already there, unloading gear from a large green veterinary truck. A few of the other rangers bustled about, prepping tranquilizer rifles, medical supplies, and radio equipment. Dr. Harmon was a tall man in his early 50s, with grey peppering his short black hair. His eyes, a keen hazel, reflected both compassion and a lifetime of experience in wildlife care. He greeted Lily with a firm handshake. "You've got quite the story, Ranger Carter. I'm eager to see this bear for myself, though I wish it were under better circumstances." She offered a small smile. "I appreciate your help, Doctor. Whatever we can do to ease that bear's suffering, we have to try." The team was small and carefully selected. Lily, Dr. Harmon, Ranger Samuels, Carla, and one junior ranger named Jesse, who was training in wildlife rescue operations. They piled into two sturdy, all-terrain vehicles, Aspen hopping into Lily's passenger seat. The plan was to drive as close to Cascade Meadows as the rough backcountry roads would allow, then hike the rest of the way. As they rattled over uneven tracks and past towering pines, Lily explained more of what she'd seen. Dr. Harmon asked detailed questions about the bear's posture, the nature of the wound, and even the look in its eyes. "Humanizing animals too much can be a slippery slope," he cautioned gently, "but I have seen enough to know that animals, especially highly intelligent ones like bears, can indeed communicate distress in unexpected ways." They reached the end of the road under a brilliant mid-morning sun. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of evergreen and damp earth. They loaded up their packs' medical kits, ropes, tranquilizer darts, and Lily's personal items, extra water, snacks for the team, and her small first aid kit for emergencies. Then they set off on foot, heading for the same trail Lily had traversed just the day before. The forest felt different now. The hush had deepened, as though the trees themselves were holding their breath. Even the birds seemed quieter, their calls muted. Aspen trotted ahead, nose to the ground, scanning for the bear's scent. Everyone walked with a deliberate calm, eyes scanning the underbrush and the canopy above. They passed the spot where Lily had first seen the bear. Dark, dried blood stained the ground and some of the rocks near the stream. Dr. Harmon knelt to examine it, his brow furrowing. "It's definitely from a large animal," he said, glancing at Lily. "This is fresh. I'd guess the bear was here not long ago." They proceeded along the water's edge. The trees gave way to a small clearing, bright with wildflowers. A cloud drifted overhead, casting a moving shadow across the meadow. Lily's heart thumped. This was it, the place where she had tended the bear. She motioned for everyone to slow down. Aspen lifted her head suddenly, tail still, nose twitching. Then she let out a sharp bark and sprinted forward across the clearing. Lily and the others rushed after the dog, each step a cautious dance between fear and anticipation. They found Aspen standing near the tree line, whining softly, pawing at a patch of flattened grass. Dr. Harmon hurried to her side. Kneeling down, the grass was matted, and there were fresh tracks, enormous paw prints, leading deeper into the woods. A few red-brown smears dotted the foliage. Lily's chest tightened. The bear's wound might be bleeding again. They followed the trail into the denser thicket. The sunlight grew dim, filtered through swaying branches. The air smelled heavier here, thick with the musk of undergrowth. Carla pointed out fresh claw marks on a nearby tree trunk, deep gouges that dripped sap. Was the bear marking territory or simply stumbling past? Finally, they heard it, a low, resonant groan. Lily froze, raising a hand for silence. The sound was unmistakable, a moaning that echoed from somewhere close. They moved slowly in the direction of that haunting cry, hearts pounding in unison. In a small glade, half hidden by fallen pines, lay the colossal bear. It was lying on its side, head resting on one massive forepaw, sides heaving with labored breaths. The wound on its flank looked worse, edges inflamed, seeping blood-tinged fluid. The bear's fur was matted with dirt and debris, likely from dragging itself through the forest. "Doctor." Harmon gestured for them to remain behind him. He calmly prepared a tranquilizer dart. "I need to get a clear shot," he whispered. "We have to do this carefully. If the dosage is off, it could kill or do nothing at all." Lily's pulse roared in her ears. The bear's labored breathing tore at her heart. She recalled how it had allowed her to approach before. Without a word, she handed Aspen's leash to Carla and took a tentative step forward, wanting to see if the bear recognized her. Her boots rustled the grass, but the bear lifted its head weakly at the sound. Its eyes, though clouded with pain, locked onto Lily. She raised her hands, palms open, voice soft as morning mist. "It's me again. We're here to help, friend." The bear huffed, a ragged, rumbling breath. Lily saw no aggression, only exhaustion, perhaps relief. "Doctor." Harmon used the distraction to take a few careful steps to the side, finding a clear angle. The dart's hiss was almost inaudible, but the bear jerked upon impact, a startled grunt escaping its throat. Lily's breath caught. If the bear decided to charge, they'd have mere seconds to react. But the giant only moaned, muscles tensing. Slowly its heavy eyelids drooped. In less than a minute, the tranquilizer took hold, and the bear slumped onto the ground, lulled into a medicated sleep. Dr. Harmon nodded, exhaling. "All right, let's move in. We don't have long before the sedation wears off, and we need to be extremely cautious about the dosage. Let's work quickly." The team sprang into action. Jesse and Carla set up a perimeter, keeping watch for any other wildlife. Samuels assisted Dr. Harmon with the medical kit, while Lily approached the bear from the front, resting a calming hand on its massive shoulder. She was acutely aware of the creature's immense power, tranquilized or not. It was like standing beside a downed freight train. Yet gratitude welled in her chest. They had a chance to help. "Doctor." Harmon carefully cleaned the wound, irrigating it with sterile solution. He frowned at the sight of infection, small pockets of pus forming along the wound's ragged edges. This could have been caused by a fight with another animal, or maybe it got snagged on something sharp. Either way, it's nasty. He used forceps to remove debris and dead tissue, then applied an antibiotic solution. Next, he threaded a curved needle, stitching the torn flesh in neat rows. The bear remained largely motionless, though an occasional tremor coursed through its body. Lily hovered, offering what help she could, handing Dr. Harmon's supplies, sponging away excess fluid. Her heart ached with each tug of the needle. The sedation kept the bear from feeling direct pain, but she knew that once it wore off, the discomfort would be significant. She whispered soothing words, unsure if the sleeping giant could hear her, but hoping it might sense her presence. After nearly 20 minutes of painstaking work, Dr. Harmon tied off the last stitch. He placed a final layer of antibiotic ointment over the sutures. Then he stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. "That's the best I can do. We'll give it a dose of antibiotics, but the rest is up to the bear's immune system and luck." He administered a large syringe into the bear's shoulder, injecting a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Lily realized that what they were doing was incredibly rare. Park policy generally discouraged direct intervention, except in unique cases. Clearly, everyone in that clearing believed this to be one of those cases. Or maybe it was the bear itself that had convinced them by daring to trust a human's touch. Samuels checked his watch. We have about 15 more minutes of sedation max. Then we need to clear out. Dr. Harmon nodded. I'll do a quick exam of vital signs. He listened to the bear's heart with a stethoscope, checked respiration, and examined its teeth. By the wear on these molars, I'd say this old boy is easily around 18 years old, possibly more. That's quite old for a wild grizzly. Lily ran her eyes over the bear's immense form. Despite the injuries and signs of age, it radiated a certain majesty. She recalled the first moment she'd seen it, how it had gazed at her, not as predator to prey, but as a fellow being asking for aid. A lump formed in her throat at the realization, for such an animal to humble itself, the pain must have been unbearable. She silently thanked it for the trust it had shown, hoping their efforts would grant it more years in the wild. They backed away cautiously, giving the bear space. The sedation would wear off soon. The plan was to leave the clearing, find a vantage point at a safe distance, and observe until the bear awoke. They needed to ensure it roused without complications or immediate danger. Lily signaled for Aspen to follow, and the group retreated through the trees to a small rise overlooking the glade. They set up a makeshift observation post, binoculars at the ready. Minutes ticked by, tension filling the forest. A crow cawed in the distance, and a gentle wind swayed the branches. Finally, the bear stirred. It lifted its gargantuan head groggily, blinking in confusion. Slowly, it shifted its weight, trying to stand but collapsing back onto its side with a huff. Lily held her breath. The sedation would leave it disoriented for a short while. They watched as the bear, with visible effort, managed to get its front paws under it. It rose on shaky legs, glancing around as if uncertain of where it was. In the hush of that moment, the bear turned its head toward their vantage point. Lily felt a jolt. Did it see them? She raised her binoculars. The bear's dark eyes scanned the tree line, then locked onto her position. Even from the distance, Lily felt a rush of connection again, as though the bear recognized the shape of her face or the aura of her presence. It let out a low, breathy grunt, neither hostile nor fearful, and then, with methodical determination, it ambled toward the deeper woods, limping but a bit more stable than before. The group exhaled as one. Dr. Harmon patted Lily's shoulder. "We've given it a fighting chance," he said quietly. "That's all we can do." They hiked back to the vehicles, the adrenaline high, slowly ebbing into cautious optimism. Dr. Harmon returned to his truck, planning to follow up with the park's bear management office about possible next steps. Ranger Samuels and the others headed to the station, but Lily found herself lingering at the trailhead. The day's events replayed in her mind, each moment etched into her consciousness, particularly that final glance the bear had cast in her direction. That haunting connection lingered, filling her heart with equal measures of hope and worry. As the days progressed, Lily couldn't shake her concern for the bear. She filed a detailed report with the head ranger, who passed the information along to higher-ups. Protocol demanded minimal further interference, but they authorized Lily to continue monitoring the bear's condition from a distance strictly observational. No more sedation, no more direct contact. Lily understood the reasons, but it gnawed at her. Could the bear truly recover on its own? With Samuel's blessing, Lily set out each morning with Aspen, hiking into the same region. She'd bring binoculars and a camera with a telephoto lens, hoping to catch a glimpse of the grizzly. Some days, she found fresh tracks or scattered tufts of fur, but no sign of the bear itself. Other times, she caught fleeting glimpses of a hulking shape moving between the trees. Once she heard that distinct moaning roar echo across a ravine, sending chills down her spine. She tried to follow, only to lose the trail in the thick undergrowth. Nearly a week after the sedation, Lily found herself at the edge of a marshy clearing dotted with tall reeds and purple lupines. A large shape emerged from the far side of the clearing. Her breath caught. It was him, the bear. He lumbered slowly through the shallows, leaving ripples in the water. Sunlight glistened off his matted fur. She raised her binoculars, heart soaring with relief. The giant seemed to be moving better, though still with a discernible limp. She noticed a patch of shaved fur where Dr. Harmon had done the stitches. The area looked cleaner, no obvious signs of oozing or infection. She snapped a few photos, capturing the bear's cautious steps. At one point, he stopped, snout lifting to sniff the wind. Lily stood frozen. She wondered if her scent drifted across the clearing. A pang of longing hit her. She wanted to be closer, to see if he would still trust her. But that was against protocol, and she'd already done more than most would ever risk. With a sigh, she watched as he waded deeper into the reeds, presumably searching for roots or insects to eat. The bear's solitary form against the backdrop of towering pines made her chest tighten with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. This was nature's way, harsh and beautiful, unstoppable and fragile, all at once. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily made these monitoring treks part of her routine. Each sighting of the old bear seemed to confirm he was healing, albeit slowly. She saw him attempt to hunt small fish in a creek, sniff around berry patches, and even doze in the dappled sunlight of a mossy slope. Dr. Harmon was pleased with the updates, remarking that the infection must be under control. "If he's still alive and active," he said over the phone, "then our intervention likely saved his life." Yet, as the physical wounds healed, Lily sensed a deeper story behind the bear's eyes. Each time she watched him, she couldn't help but feel there was a layer of heartbreak or loss within him. She had no way of knowing what trials he'd faced, maybe an old mate or cubs lost to the harshness of the wild, or too many battles with other bears. But the sorrow in his gaze, the lonely moans that sometimes drifted on the wind, suggested that the bear carried burdens that ran deeper than the physical. Summer in Yellowstone can shift in an instant. One day might be balmy and bright, the next battered by sudden thunderstorms rolling over the mountains. Lily continued her work, patrolling other regions and assisting hikers, but she never stopped thinking about the bear. The rumored sightings grew among visitors. "We saw this huge grizzly near the river." It seemed calm, kind of sad-looking. The stories trickled back to the station, and each one gave Lily a sliver of hope that the old bear was forging a life beyond his injury. One afternoon, thick clouds gathered on the horizon. Lightning forked in the distance, thunder booming across the valleys. Park alerts went out, warning campers to seek shelter and avoid high ridges. Lily was at the station when a frantic call crackled over the radio. 2 hikers had gone missing near the far side of Cascade Meadows. Search and rescue was mobilized immediately. Lily's heart clenched. That was the bear's territory. She and Aspen joined the team, racing against the approaching storm. Rain pelted the windshield of the ranger's SUV, and the wipers did little to keep up. When they reached the trailhead, the wind howled through the treetops. Lightning illuminated the darkened sky, revealing glimpses of jagged mountain peaks. Lily felt a surge of anxiety. If the hikers were lost out here, the conditions would be brutal. Despite the downpour, they followed the faint tracks of the hikers' 2 sets of footprints, likely a man and a woman, heading off trail. After an hour of careful searching through dripping ferns and slippery rocks, Aspen let out a sharp bark, tail wagging. She led them to a narrow gorge carved by a rushing creek. The storm had transformed the creek into a torrent. On the other side, huddled beneath a ledge, were the missing hikers. Relief flooded Lily. The pair, shivering and soaked, called out for help. But the creek was a raging barrier, impossible to ford without risking their lives. Lily radioed the rest of the team to bring ropes and additional equipment. While they waited, she tossed a rope across, hoping to secure it so the hikers could cross one at a time with a makeshift harness. The raging water churned, nearly impossible to manage in the darkness and the relentless onslaught of rain. Suddenly, a flash of lightning revealed a massive shape on the bank near the hikers, a bear. Lily's heart jolted. Even through the sheets of rain, she recognized that hulking silhouette and the patch of shaved fur. It was him, the old bear, standing just yards from the stranded hikers. The thunder boomed, and the hikers began to scream. They clutched each other, certain they were about to be attacked. "No, no!" Lily shouted through the gale, waving her arms to get their attention. "Stay calm! Don't run!" She could just make out the bear's posture, head low, ears back. He was clearly startled by the hikers' panic. Lightning flashed again, revealing a flash of fear and confusion in the bear's eyes. Lily realized he was cornered by the rushing water and the hikers' presence. This could turn deadly in an instant. Desperate, Lily scrambled along her bank of the creek, trying to find a vantage point where the bear might see her. She had no illusions that the grizzly remembered her intimately. She was only a fleeting presence in his life. But maybe, just maybe, that connection could diffuse the tension. At last, she managed to climb onto a fallen log, protruding over the swirling water. She gripped a branch to steady herself, risking the lightning, but she had to try. She raised her voice, calling the bear's name as she'd grown used to referring to him in her own thoughts. "Hey, big fella, it's okay!" Her tone was calm, almost pleading, projecting over the thunder. The bear snapped its head toward her voice, muzzle dripping rain. The hikers on the far bank froze, eyes wide in terror. Lily repeated the words, her voice trembling. "It's okay, buddy. Nobody's here to hurt you." The old bear stood, trembling in the storm, uncertain. Minutes seemed to stretch on like hours, each lightning strike a burst of revelation across the midnight landscape. Eventually, the bear swung his gaze from Lily to the terrified hikers. In that surreal moment, he seemed to recognize their desperation was not aggression. He let out a sound somewhere between a huff and a low moan and backed away, giving the hikers a wide berth. Then he turned and lumbered into the shadows of the trees, disappearing into the night. Lily almost collapsed in relief. The rest of the search and rescue team arrived moments later with ropes and harnesses. With coordinated effort, they got the hikers across the torrent. Everyone was soaked to the bone, adrenaline pumping. By the time they made it back to the vehicles, the storm had begun to subside. The rescued hikers, shivering but safe, were loaded into a park vehicle. One of them, a young woman, stared at Lily with tears in her eyes. "That bear. Why didn't it attack us?" Lily just shook her head. "Sometimes we're not the monsters we think we are, and neither are they." She wasn't sure how else to explain it. The storm's fury left behind a renewed sense of awe and caution in the park. Trails closed for assessment, and rangers spent the following days cleaning up debris, checking for fallen trees, and ensuring visitors were safe. The encounter by the raging creek lingered in Lily's mind. She kept replaying that fleeting standoff, the terror in the hiker's eyes, the bear's rumbling moan, and the unmistakable moment of recognition when it heard her voice. Despite the park's stance on minimal intervention, Dr. Harmon and several senior rangers praised Lily's handling of the situation. "It could have ended in tragedy for the hikers, or the bear, or both," Samuel said. "But it didn't, thanks to your calm approach." Still, Lily felt a pull to see the old bear again, to ensure he was truly all right. She reasoned that he might have fled the area after that harrowing night, but some nights, while she lay in bed listening to the wind in the pines, she swore she heard distant moans echo across the valleys, a lonely, resonant sound that both haunted and comforted her. About a week later, Lily set off alone on a day off, deciding to head toward a vantage point overlooking Cascade Meadows. She packed a small lunch, some warm layers, and took Aspen for company. She didn't intend to track the bear so much as to observe, see if he was still roaming in the region. Sunlight filtered through the leaves as they hiked. The forest had a fresh, cleansed scent after the storm petrica, mingling with pine and wildflowers. Aspen trotted ahead, sniffing curiously. Birds sang from the branches, and everything felt vibrant with renewal. Lily walked in contemplative silence, reflecting on how the events of the past few weeks had changed her own perspective on life, on nature's interconnectedness. She realized that the bear's willingness to trust her had awakened something in her, a deeper sense of empathy, not just for wildlife, but for all living beings struggling with their hidden wounds. At last, they reached the overlook. It provided a sweeping view of the meadow below, flanked by stands of aspen and pine. Lily removed her binoculars, scanning for movement. For a long time, she saw nothing but swaying grass and the occasional flicker of small animals darting about. Then, near the far side of the meadow, she spotted a large, dark shape. Her heart skipped a beat. Raising the binoculars, she confirmed it was him. He was ambling along the edge of the meadow, occasionally pausing to graze on vegetation. The limp was still present, but he seemed stronger, more assured in his steps. As Lily watched, the bear suddenly lifted his head, ears perking up. A moment later, another shape emerged, a younger grizzly, smaller and lithe, likely a sub-adult. Immediately, Lily tensed, wondering if there would be a confrontation. Instead, the old bear just watched the younger one from a distance. The sub-adult ambled around, then darted off, perhaps sensing it was outmatched in size. The old bear grunted, continued foraging, and eventually settled onto his haunches, gazing out across the meadow as though in a reflective trance. A wave of emotion washed over Lily. She remembered Dr. Harmon's words about this bear's age, maybe 18 years, possibly older. Grizzlies in the wild typically lived 20 to 25 years if they were lucky. This one had endured battles, heartbreaks, injuries, and the relentless trials of wilderness survival. And yet, he still found moments of peace in this meadow, still carried himself with a quiet dignity that both astonished and humbled her. Quietly, Lily crept closer, staying downwind. She kept a careful distance, well beyond the recommended range for grizzly observation, but near enough to see him without the binoculars. Aspen stayed at her side, ears twitching. The bear noticed them, or at least sensed their presence. He turned his massive head in their direction. Lily's pulse quickened. If he chose to stand and huff or charge, she'd have to retreat. She placed a hand on Aspen's collar, ready to pull back. Yet, the old bear didn't stir in aggression. He seemed to study them for a few seconds, then let out a long, soft exhale, returning his gaze to the meadow. Lily found herself wishing she could speak directly to him, to express her gratitude or assure him that his trust was not betrayed. Of course, words meant nothing here, only the heart's quiet understanding that they were, in some strange way, companions on the same journey. She stayed for perhaps an hour, watching as he foraged, wandered, then lay down for a nap in a patch of sunlight. Finally, the sun dipped lower, and Lily knew she should head back before dark. She rose to leave, whispering a silent goodbye, her throat tight with unspoken sentiment. Word of the 1,000-pound bear's remarkable story began to circulate among the rangers and even seeped out to some of the more curious park visitors. Nobody had an official name for him, but Lily heard rumors in the visitor center. They say there's an old grizzly that's not afraid of rangers. I heard it was injured, but a ranger saved it. Myths and embellishments grew, some painting the bear as a gentle giant, others as a dangerous beast who'd learned to manipulate humans. Lily smiled to herself, recognizing how stories could take on a life of their own. The truth was simpler and more profound. A wounded bear had sought help and found it. In the following weeks, Lily responded to various calls around the park, typical ranger duties. But whenever she had a spare moment, she'd revisit Cascade Meadows, checking on the old bear from afar. One late afternoon, she found him near a hillside, rummaging for grubs under a log. He appeared to be healing well, his limp less pronounced. She wondered if the stitches had dissolved or if the fur was regrowing over the scar. On her way back, she encountered a family of tourists on the trail, a father, mother, and 2 young children who couldn't have been older than 8. They looked nervous, stepping off the path as soon as they saw her uniform. Lily greeted them warmly, asking if they needed help. The father explained they were hoping to catch a glimpse of Yellowstone's famous wildlife, but were worried about bears. Lily knelt down to speak gently to the children. Bears are amazing animals, but they're also wild and can be dangerous. The best thing you can do is give them space and learn how to respect their home. She showed them how to carry bear spray properly and how to talk calmly if they ever encountered a bear at close range. As the family thanked her and walked on, Lily felt a renewed sense of purpose. The memory of the old bear's trusting eyes flickered in her mind. He had taught her that even the fiercest creatures can be vulnerable, and that with genuine empathy and understanding, humans and wildlife could share a moment of compassion. She carried that lesson in every interaction, hoping to spread a sense of respect for the untamed spirits of the wilderness. Summer rolled toward autumn. The aspen leaves turned brilliant gold, and a new chill crept into the early mornings. Lily knew the bears would soon be gorging themselves in preparation for hibernation. She wondered if the old bear would find enough resources to fatten up for the long winter. She feared his wound might slow him down, but each sighting suggested he was resourceful, determined as ever. One crisp afternoon, Lily ventured to the meadow once more. The sky was clear, a dazzling blue against the vibrant yellows and oranges of the changing foliage. She had barely arrived at her usual vantage point when she spotted the old bear. He was on the move, lumbering uphill toward a slope dotted with berry shrubs. Lily hiked closer, staying concealed by trees. She had grown familiar with a safe observation distance, one that wouldn't spook him but allowed her to watch unobtrusively. Midway up the slope, the bear paused. He sniffed the air, then turned in Lily's direction. She froze, heart thudding. Slowly, he took a few steps toward her, not aggressively, but with an almost inquisitive manner. Lily felt her palms grow clammy on her binoculars. She glanced at Aspen, who shifted anxiously but stayed still. The forest was silent except for a gentle rustle of leaves. The bear closed the distance to perhaps 50 yards, uncomfortably close by most wildlife standards. But Lily didn't move. She kept her posture relaxed, her arms at her sides. The memory of that first encounter flooded back the day she cleaned his wound by the stream. Had he truly recognized her, or was this curiosity a random chance? He let out a low chuffing sound, not quite a growl, but a vocalization. She remembered reading that bears sometimes chuff when they're curious or cautious, not necessarily aggressive. She took a breath. "It's okay, friend," she said softly. "It's me." An impossible moment stretched before her. Their gazes locked, and in the depths of his eyes, Lily sensed something akin to acceptance or maybe recognition. The old bear snorted, then slowly turned, ambling off into the thicker woods. Lily stood rooted in place, tears gathering in her eyes, not out of fear, but out of a profound gratitude. The bear seemed to be saying a wordless goodbye, or perhaps simply acknowledging her presence in his life's tapestry. As transient as it might be, she watched him disappear among the autumn hues. A gust of wind carried the scent of pine and decaying leaves, reminding her that every season is fleeting. This might be the last time she saw him by next spring. He could be in another range or gone altogether. She bowed her head, sending silent well wishes after his retreating form, for a safe den, for enough food, for the gift of healing to endure another cycle of the wild. Lily turned to Aspen, who gazed up at her, tail slowly wagging. She knelt and hugged the dog, emotions tumbling within her. "Thank you," she whispered to the forest, to the bear, and to the mysterious forces that brought them together. It was a moment that would live in her soul forever, a testament to resilience and trust amidst the indifferent grandeur of nature. Thank you for joining me on this extraordinary journey through Yellowstone's wild heart, where 1,000-pound bear's silent plea bridged the ancient divide between humans and nature. Ranger Lily Carter's compassion, bravery, and willingness to listen reminds us that true connection often comes from the most unexpected places. If this tale of resilience, empathy, and growth has touched you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Every engagement helps spread the message that respect for nature and for one another can heal wounds we never thought possible. By supporting stories like this, you become part of a greater mission to honor the wild, protect what is precious, and find strength in unity. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes, all it takes is a single act of kindness to change a life, or maybe even save one.